Host of the Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio and a Fox News contributor. Guy, it's great to have you with us. Obviously, this has been a long haul. The story is not over. There have been a number of Democrats who have been pushed into the forefront on this story, including Larry Summers, who we'll talk about in just a moment. But what's your take on what happened here today, Guy?
Well, it's pretty extraordinary that it was a nearly unanimous vote given where things stood just a few days ago, right? The Democrats, I think, absolutely politicized this. Everyone seems to have politicized this to some extent. And we played the clip of a Democrat saying, well, of course Biden should have done it, but he didn't. We're talking about the here and now. They didn't feel like this was worthwhile on that side of the aisle to spend all this time talking about and obsessing over until there was some sort of negative Trump angle that they thought that they had. It's very clear, right? That being said, I think the American people look at what happened in this Epstein cabal. They recognize deep down something very evil happened, and I think that there was some conspiracy to cover it up or to downplay it and to evade accountability and justice. So there's a hunger among the public to say, enough of that, let's see everything. And for a while, Trump hated the fact that this was going in this direction because of the politics he felt like the Democrats were playing. He was urging Republicans to line up and vote no on exactly this kind of bill. But the trickling defections kept coming. And I was hearing that the leadership on the Republican side here in D.C. were expecting and bracing for something of a jailbreak, a ton of defections, at which point Trump said, you know what, forget it. Let's just endorse the whole thing and put it out there. And now the question, Martha, becomes, to your point, what comes next? Because in its current form, legislation saying just put every single thing out in the open has some very practical drawbacks and problems with it. And maybe the U.S. Senate will consider those as they move forward.
Yeah, we heard Speaker Johnson's concerns about some things that could come out, because what we're seeing is that anybody who's ever mentioned in any way is swept with this broad brush. And in terms of the grand jury discussions and the back and forth in the grand jury, Speaker Johnson expressed some concerns about some of that. But President Trump has said this is a Democrat problem, that it's a problem for more prominent Democrats. And he says it is not a problem for him in terms of what could come out in this. And Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary and the former president of Harvard University, one of the most well-known economists in the country, was corresponding with Epstein. And I think that one of the things that's very significant here, Guy, is that this email that we're looking at, this was sent after the really groundbreaking piece that was in the Miami Herald in the end of 2018, which really was what blew this case wide open in terms of how the Justice Department in Florida handled this whole thing and how Jeffrey Epstein ended up with just one charge of soliciting prostitution from a minor. So this exploded. But after this explosive Miami Herald investigative piece, this is what Larry Summers was communicating with him about. He was talking about his, this woman he was interested in. And Epstein says, oh, she's smart. She's making you pay for past errors. Ignore the daddy I'm going to go out with the motorcycle guy. You reacted well. Epstein responds, well, we talked on the phone, and then I can't talk later. He goes on to say, she said, I'm busy. I said, awfully coy you are. So he's going back and forth. He's talking about some woman that he is involved with and getting advice from Jeffrey Epstein on how he should handle it. And Epstein's giving him feedback, Guy. So Larry Summers has removed himself, stepped back from very prominent organizations. I think we have a list of some of them. As a result of this, what's your reaction to the Summers part of the story?
Well, I think so much of this saga stinks to high heaven, which is why there's so much suspicion surrounding it. Why would someone of that degree of prominence, and others, by the way, be involved with someone like Epstein and still be corresponding in any sort of meaningful way, in a positive sense, with Epstein after all the allegations were completely public? How's that even possible? It seems unfathomable, which is, I think, one of these nagging questions that a lot of us have about what actually went on here. And I don't like the partisan food fight, but I think most Americans say if you can clear that out and protect the victims, give us virtually everything, because a lot of it still doesn't add up, and accountability is important for the people, especially at the top on the power ladder in this country.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about that original investigation in Florida and why it was controlled so tightly. And then the people who continued, and President Trump did not, he had parted ways with him a long time before this, including Prince Andrew, after that, to sort of cater to him and try to, tell him that they were sorry, Fergie as well, that they had to say things publicly against him. It's pretty stunning. Guy, thank you very much. As you say, a very significant, near unanimous vote to release all these files this afternoon. Always good to have you, Guy. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.